Doors that won't latch. Probably one of the most common and annoying things that you're going to find around your home. I think I got it this time. Maybe not. Well, today I'm going to be showing you the most common reasons that doors don't latch, and I'll show you how to fix these issues quickly and easily so that by the end of this video you'll all be able to fix a door that won't latch yourself. The first thing to take a look at is the latch itself. Is the latch springing back out properly? Sometimes they get stuck, sometimes they get jammed on the spindle within the handle. If the spindle, the bar that goes through the door, is fouled, what can sometimes happen is the handle can get jammed and the latch won't operate properly. So it's always worth taking a look at the latch first to check that there's no issues with the latch. If you do seem to have a problem with the latch, one thing you can do is use some lubricant like WD-40, cycle the latch a bunch of times to free it off, and it should get it working again. If it doesn't, you can replace the latch and you should be good to go. We also need to check the strike plate. On this one it's got a lock on it. A lot of doors you're only going to have this top section here. This is where the latch should fall into, and you could get a bit of debris or timber that's fouling the latch, and that could potentially stop the latch from engaging in the strike plate properly. So there are a couple of quick and easy little checks that you can make, but assuming that's not the problem, as it's not on this door, we'll move on to the most common issues that you get that cause this problem. If we take a step back and look at the whole door, we're probably going to see some telltale signs of what the problems might be. The first thing I notice when I look at this door is there's very little gap between the frame and the door. But if we look at the top, we've got a much larger gap. That tells me that the door has actually moved over like that very slightly. It's actually leaning away from that frame. Now the impact of that is that the latch is going to be too low. This type of movement is fairly common on old doors, and we need to find out where the latch actually positions once the door closes into the strike plate. Of course, that's fairly hard to see with the door actually closed, but there is a way that we can tell. For this you'll want some masking tape. This is frog tape. Think of it as coloured masking tape. It makes no difference. And what I'm going to do is stick my piece of masking tape just over my strike plate there. You can see, stick that on there nicely. Frog tape's actually good because it's very sticky. And now we'll be able to mark where the latch falls within the strike plate. For this there's a very technical tool you want. It's called a pencil. This is an Ox pencil, but you can use any pencil. I'll link these below if you want to grab one. So if I close the door just a little bit so that the latch sits against the strike plate, I'll be able to mark where the top and bottom of the latch are positioned. And with the door open back up, I can extend those marks across my piece of tape. I'm just using a square to extend those marks across. We'll be able to get a good idea then of where that latch falls. We've got a mark at the top of the latch and at the bottom of the latch. And worryingly, what we can see here is that this line is actually going to miss. If we break this tape, when that latch comes in, it's actually fouling on the bottom of the strike plate just there. When you look at the latch as the door closes, it also looks like it's not falling within the strike plate very well, and that's probably because this strike plate needs to come forward very slightly. There's two things we can do to bring that latch up very slightly so that it doesn't foul the strike plate. The first one is to shim the bottom hinge of the door, and the door at the moment, it's exaggerated, but it's leaning like this, so that's causing the latch to face slightly downwards. If we shim the bottom hinge, we can pick the door up very slightly, straighten it up, and that few millimeters will probably clear the strike plate. So let's have a look at how we shim a hinge. To shim a hinge, the first thing we need to do is remove the screws on the frame side. Flip the leaf of the hinge forward to get to the back of it. Now we can shim with a piece of cardboard. It's the most commonly available material that we can use for this job. And I had my Weetabix this morning, so I'm simply going to cut a bit of the box from the Weetabix, and we can use this to shim the hinge. Put them back in the cupboard, see if anyone notices. This is the most commonly used material for shimming hinges. You'll often find it behind a hinge. The only time I wouldn't advise you use this is on external or fire rated doors. We can install one piece, two pieces, or we could fold it in half to create an even bigger shim to push the side of the door over, or of course move the whole door over if we were to do every single hinge. Place the piece of cardboard behind the hinge, and then we're going to punch the screws through that cardboard And then you can do all the screws back up. But you do need to make sure you're looking at the gap around the door as you do any shimming, because what could happen is you could move the door too much and it could rub against the frame. Now if shimming the hinges doesn't work for you and you're still catching the bottom of the strike plate, there's one more little trick we can do. We can use a file like this to file away the very bottom of the strike plate. Now this isn't going to work in all situations. It'll only work when there's a very small amount catching on the strike plate, but also remember there's timber behind this strike plate, and if we file away the metal, unless we remove some of the timber behind that metal, it may not work, but it's always worth a try. Now I'm going to pop another piece of tape on here and we're going to see what difference these changes have made so far. If this video is helping you so far, hit subscribe because you don't want to miss more videos like this, and hit like because that helps this video reach and help more people on YouTube. I'm just going to mark this again. So you can see those changes have helped. We've got a mil or two between the bottom of the strike plate and where the latch falls into the hole. But if I take a close look at the latch, I can see if I push the door really hard, it is kind of semi-latching. There you go, it's semi-latching there. So because it's semi-latching, that tells me that the latch is only just, when the door's pushed, falling within the hole in the strike plate. So we are going to have to move the strike plate. It's always a bit of a last resort because there is a bit of painting and filling involved, but it's not as difficult as you think, so let's get to it. The first thing we're going to do is pop the screws out of the strike plate and then pull the strike plate away from the frame. We then need to position the strike plate slightly forward in its new location where it will latch and draw around it. Then there's a couple of tools that we could use to cut away the material for the new location. We could either use a sharp Stanley knife and cut along the lines like you see here, or preferably a nice sharp chisel. That's going to be the best way to get nice, clean, straight cuts and remove that material without making a mess of the frame. We can then position the strike plate in its new location, but you'll see that we've got some timber to remove inside the holes for the latch. So we're going to use the same thing, a chisel again, just to remove that excess material and make a nice clean job of it. Make sure there's no material left over that could obstruct the latch. By doing that, we can see the strike plate now goes exactly where we want it to go. The issue we now face is that these screw holes are off center from the hole in the strike plate. So we need to fill those holes so the screws don't follow them, and as we tighten the screw, pull the strike plate back to its original position. There's a lot of ways we can fill those. We could use wood filler, we could drill the hole out to a 6mm hole and insert a 6mm wooden dowel. That's probably the best way if you got those at hand. But I found these little bamboo skewers in the drawer, so they're at hand and I'm going to use them to fill the holes. I popped the cocktail stick in the hole and then just cut it off flush with a chisel. This is a Trend self-center and drill bit, and I'm going to use this to re-drill the holes for my screws in their new location. I'll pop links below in the description to handy little tools like this Trend self-center and drill bit. The trick to getting a perfectly centered hole is to use the strike plate to guide the drill bit, and then we can just pop the screws back in. Of course, by doing this, you are going to leave a couple of gaps where the strike plate was, but you can use filler or caulk and a little bit of paint to tidy those gaps up afterwards. That is the click that you're looking for. By using these little tips and tricks, I'm sure you've turned your door from one that won't latch into one that will. If the video's helped you and you want to learn more, because there is a lot more to learn about doors, then hit one of these videos because they're bound to help as well. I'll see you guys in the next one.